Our friend wants us to take a picture of him while he's jumping midair above a railing. How do we do that? Well, that's why the shutter priority option is on your camera. Well, let's talk about that. Okay, so our friend wants us to take a picture of him while he's jumping midair. Well, that's cool for sports, but we know only so far how to use an aperture priority. Well, this time we're gonna talk about the shutter speed priority, and that's for exactly this scenario. Okay, everybody, so I welcome you back to this channel. We're gonna talk about the shutter speed priority, and that's for my case called TV. It basically, you are setting up how much you want your sensor inside a camera to be exposed to the light coming into the camera. Well, that's exactly for the purposes when you want to take a picture of someone jumping midair. How do I choose correct amount of shutter speed? For the best results, like always, use the highest amount of shutter speed. That means the camera is fastest. 1/8000 of a second. Well, that's really small number. That means the shutter's gonna be really quick. But that means really low amount of light is gonna come into the sensor. So how are we gonna dance around that? Well, don't use 1/8000 of a shutter speed. If you are outside and you have direct sunlight, maybe then it is a good option, but don't try to use that. 1/8000 of a shutter speed is frankly ridiculous. Try to use something smaller, but 1/800th of a shutter speed, that's a good choice. 500th, 120th of a second, those are good numbers. You can think about the shutter speed in the terms of focal length of your lens. This lens has a 50mm focal length. So for this lens, I would use 1/50th, 1/60th of a shutter speed. My subject is not really moving and he's standing posing for me, so I can clearly take a picture of him just with the 1/50th, 1/60th of a shutter speed. The faster I will take the shutter speed, the more guaranteed is that the result's gonna be sharp, but I'm losing light with the faster shutter speed I'm using. You can imagine this by quickly opening and closing your eyes. If you will do it fast enough, you won't see almost anything. That's why the light hasn't got a chance to reach your eye and be processed by the brain. And that's the same with the camera. If the shutter speed is gonna be really quick, you won't see anything on the picture. But if it's gonna be really slow, you will get everything blurred out. Everything will be affected by the motion blur, because no one can sit really still in the frame, like, you see? Anything can happen and you will slightly move. So if you will keep your shutter speed at 1/50th, 1/60th of a shutter speed when you are taking portraits of someone, that's quite good. I have heard from other filmmakers that 125th of a shutter speed, that's kind of like a golden rule if you want to get a sharp image and you don't want to lose on that light on your pictures. But I'm using mostly not the full frame cameras, but I have APS-C sensor, so that's slightly less than a full frame. I'm already losing on light when I'm taking pictures. And the lenses I have, their aperture is not really wide. So if I'm taking pictures, I have to be really careful if I'm getting the right exposure onto my pictures. So that's why I have to somehow go onto that really razor edge of 1/50th, 1/60th of shutter speed, sometimes 1/40th, 1/30th, and that's really getting close to almost all of the time you will get motion blur on your pictures. Okay, so that's talking about taking a picture of someone jumping midair. 1/300th, 1/400th of a second of a shutter speed, right? That's appropriate number. But let's take this shutter speed rule up a notch. And you know these pictures when you see moving subject, which is quite frankly in a focus and is sharp, but everything else is a little bit blurred out. But it's kind of moving in the same way. Your brain is processing that like it's moving, but it's not actually moving because it's a picture, right? And how do we get that? Well, if you take your camera and you are chasing the subject around, like the bicycle guy is going around, or car, really fast car is going around. You are trying to take the picture, but it's really hard to take it in focus because you have either really slow shutter speed or you have either really high shutter speed. How to decide on how to get a right amount of shutter speed? Well, I've heard that the speed of the car is actually good shutter speed. Well, I would say take it ×2 and you're getting correct maybe shutter speed, or ×3, as much as you want. But given you are taking sharp picture of a car and you want also background to be blurred out but not to have motion blur. But yeah, we're talking about the motion blur. So how do you get that motion blur? Well, you are panning around, you are following your subject, and think about it. If you open and close the shutter, like taking the picture that I have 1/30th, 1/20th of a shutter speed, it will take a tuck tuck. You can hear how it opens and closes the shutter. You really have to play around with this because you won't get it correct at the first time. I was outside and the picture you have seen was taken correctly from 40 pictures that I have taken that were just rubbish. But if you will go like 1/30th, 1/40th of a shutter speed, and the subject is actually moving like maybe 40-50 kilometers per hour and it's going around you, that's quite good. And if you are panning with him correctly, you have to follow him really carefully, because if you will move or you will not be horizontal with the subject that you are shooting, it will be visible on the picture afterwards. It's kind of like a filming, but you are not creating a video. You can go as low half of a second. You will see for yourself. Go and try this rule on your own and you will realize how maybe good you are at that or how much you have to train. So, go around and play with your shutter speed priority. Remember, higher numbers means motion blur, lower numbers means less light, but things are frozen in time. Try to get the golden rule in that, but if you know how fast is moving your subject, double the number and you will maybe get the right amount of shutter speed. Losing there on the time is not really helpful. And if you want to get that motion blur, try and pan with the rider, but choose about the 1/20th, 1/30th, or maybe as low as half of a second, and you will get that motion blur, but you will realize how hard it is to stay on focus with the rider while panning with him. Try to use autofocus on a servo mode, but using less modern technology will make you better in the long run. And as always, if you like this video, subscribe, like it, and comment down below, and I will see you in the next video. And in the meantime, whoa! Yeah, I recorded 3 videos in a row. 3. Actually quite tough. Of him. But we want to take it exactly. Okay, that's where the shutter spiral. Erase this everything. Well, that's why shutter. Without I'm writing, so it needs to be open. That's gonna believe me that I was. Discuss how you can use the shutter priority for your own advantage. Ooh. I haven't turned off once again. Yeah, I'll have to. Let's take this. Do we have it? I wanna hear yes. What's wrong with that thing? But that's not for sure. Okay, let's take this entirely once again.